Well, what makes a great safety is because you have the freedom to pick what you want, is you have to be on point most of the time. So I think that I agree with you, Mike, on the underrated, because you have to be able to read an offense just as good as that offense can read your defense. So you're almost a quarterback in this scenario because you have to make sure you're making the play. And if one bad move, we've seen it all the time, and then we see Tyreek Hill running all alone by himself, and we're like, how is he by himself? And it's like the safety jumped on the wrong guy. He didn't read the offense. Yeah, buddy. Episode 102, Cinco Squad. What's going on, everyone? My name is Jonathan Sawyer. With me are my brothers, Mike DeSanto, Grandpa Jay, and TreyDay. We're all in our secluded locations this week. Fellas, it was great being with you. And
yes.
Trey, we finally let you out of the suitcase.
I'm still in the suitcase. What are you talking about? I'm in Mike's house.
Damn, bro. I thought you were going to unpack when you came home.
No, Mike never unpacked. I'm still in the suitcase.
Damn, I did unpack. You weren't in. Wait a minute. What?
Oh, shit. You grabbed the wrong suitcase.
Oh,
Trey's in somewhere else in Rochester. God damn it.
Mike, he had such a good vacay, he didn't even get a double check that he picked the right suitcase on his way home. Way to go, Mikey.
I wondered whose panties those were.
Oh, boy.
Oh, okay, Mike.
I was wondering about the Saquon jersey. I was wondering about the Saquon Barkley jersey that I was just on top of me in the suitcase right now.
Well, see, I have that for kindling now. I just gotta keep warm, you know.
I'd be so mad if you burned a jersey. I'm not gonna lie.
I know. Jersey. No, I wouldn't.
But yeah, it was great being with you guys last week.
Yeah,
Wish TreyDay could have been there. It'd been a real fun episode. We're all together. We will get together, all four of us, one day.
Yes,
one day. TreyDay, we're gonna let you out of the suitcase, but. Let's get right into it. We got NCAA basketball heating up in conference championship week. We got NFL free agency going off the rails right now. But we have to go into first what's on Mike's mind. So, Mike, take it away.
Yeah, so you mentioned what our topic is this week. We're going to dip a little into NFL free agency, and I'm going to give you guys a little quick history lesson on NFL free agency and some of the crazy things that have happened. So, long time ago, when the NFL was first founded, just like with all pro sports, if a player's contract expired, they could renegotiate with the team. If they couldn't come to negotiate the deal, the franchise could renew their old contract with a max pay cut of 10%. If the player refused to sign, they were actually put on a reserve list and could not negotiate with anybody else unless the team sold their contract to them. So they were essentially prisoners of their teams. 1947, that changed. 1-year option rule. They were able to go free agency one time after one instance of that reserve system that they had. But it took 16 years for the first NFL free agent, wide receiver R.C. Owens, to change teams. The response to that, when he moved from San Francisco to Baltimore, was the 49ers owner never speaking with the Baltimore Colts owner again, and Pete Rozelle, the commissioner at the time, instituting the Rozelle rule, which allowed him to, at his discretion, compensate teams for lost free agents. But the thing is, there was no system for what those compensations were. In one instance, for example, the Saints were forced to give the 49ers 2 first-round picks in exchange for wide receiver Dave Parks. The season before, with San Francisco, Parks only caught 26 passes. With unfair compensation, teams were then shy to sign players that were free agents. So between 63 and 74, the time of the Rozelle rule, only 34 free agents actually signed with new teams.
You lost me at what's on Mike's mind.
Fair enough. A lot of information. I know, but...
On the graphic on this, it's going to be like an arrow, just boom, boom, boom. And you go here, and then you go there. That's crazy. That's wild.
Yeah. So
it's going to actually be a free agent. I mean,
right. Yes. Right. So for all those years, you either could not be a free agent, or a team would get wildly overcompensated for you being a free agent.
Yeah, no, they actually pay you too on top of it.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you lose.
It's almost like the dead cap money, right?
Like pretty much.
Like
It's
you're the
always worse when they
dedicated.
make you give up picks. At least now, when they do the compensation picks, like after,
Right.
it's not like you have to give it the compensation. You're just comped
Right.
a free pick, not the team gives it up to you.
I'm good.
All right, boys and girls, ghouls and goblins, welcome to another edition of your Locks of the Week. Last week, didn't realize, well, it kind of happened midweek when we made the pick. Steph didn't play on the Saturday night game, and that's pretty much why we didn't hit our parlay. Had we known Steph wasn't playing, maybe we would have made a little shift and not put in that ticket so early. That's why you got to wait till game time sometimes so you know who's on the floor. And then those USF Bulls with a late season loss, not good for the parlay, but probably good for the Bulls. It's going to have them refocus for their conference tournament, probably end up being the best thing for them this season heading into the big dance. Chances are they might not make it in. I think that's bullshit. I hope they do. Now let's get to your locks of the week. So I got myself a Friday night Road Warrior parlay with a side of homemade pelican. Here's what I mean by that. Love the matchups this Friday, and here's what we're going to do. We're going to put together a 5-team parlay, and we're going to see that cash in. First things first, Miami, going to Detroit. Put that down as a win for the Heat. They're getting healthy. They're getting hot. I love the way this team is playing right now. Then Phoenix heading to Charlotte. Those Suns are going to not just beat the Hornets, but they'll cover. However, we're just going to make this a money line parlay. Then we got the Nuggets, who will dominate San Antonio. And then the Magic are going to get a win in the 6th. That's in Toronto against the Raptors. Now, what do you mean by a side of homemade pelican? Well, the Pelicans are going to cook those Clippers, who Shea will obviously talk shit about at some point in this episode, because just last night they blew a 22-point lead to the Timberwolves as soon as Kawhi went to the bench with back spasms. So this week, put together that cooking parlay. We got the Friday night Road Warrior parlay mixed with that homemade pelican. Heat to win in Detroit. Suns to win in Charlotte. Nuggets to win in San Antonio. The Magic to win in the 6th in Toronto. And then take those Pelicans to do the dirty and take care of the Clippers at home. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is your 5-team parlay in the NBA Friday night. Get it right. Those are your locks of the week. That's how we're going to win money together. Take my advice, baby.
What the hell is an AI-generated fight? So this week we get announced that Buster Douglas is going to be fighting Michael Spinks. These two gentlemen are ages of 67 and 63. They're supposed to be doing an AI-generated fight. So they're going to play a video game, or how exactly do we do this? Are we going to have them two fight in their prime? Are they going to be fighting currently? But back to what I said, what in the hell is an AI-generated fight? I remember the movie Rocky Balboa, and that was a fictional movie about Rocky, and he fights real-life champion Antonio Tarver. It starts off with them having a simulation, and they say, oh, let's make this really happen, and they end up actually fighting in the movie. But that was a damn movie. This is real life. We don't need a damn AI-generated fight. Last week we had to hear about Mike Tyson is fighting Jake Paul. Can we cut this shit and get back to real boxing? It's too many other good fighters, actual fighters. Let's promote them. Let's make boxing actually great again. Because this whole AI-generated fight, these retired guys, the UFC fighters, this shit's not working. Please, make boxing great again.
NFL free agency is going off right now, fellas, and there's guys going everywhere. I feel like teams are going to rivals all the time. Shout out to Saquon. But I guess who is made the biggest splash to you guys in the NFL with the signing of a free agent, or just in team general? TreyDay?
For me, it's going to be kind of a little bit biased. I mean, I'm going to talk about my Steelers here because really, they were kind of in no man's land, and to basically get a starting quarterback, I know Russ may not be what he used to be, but for $1.2 million, the other day I'm on, Sports Track, and I'm looking at contracts, and I'm strolling. I had to go like 30 people on the roster before I got to his damn contract because it was so damn cheap. But the really big key one is getting Patrick Queen at the end of the day, because that's really a long-term play, and they have needed that inside linebacker forever. Unfortunately, Ryan Shazier, when he had that injury, it changed the whole fortunes of that defense because we've never had that guy in the center who's reliable. Queen is young. He can be a leader. You put him. You still have Holcomb coming back. You have Highsmith and Watt. You have Minka in the back. Like, you got Hayward's leadership there. That makes that defense elite, which at that point, you take Russ. Underrated also. Finally got rid of Presley Harvin. We needed a new punter. When you have a team like that plays a lot of field position, your punter sucks, it's only putting your defense in worse position. So far, I have really loved what the Steelers have done. I know some people are mad about the Deontay thing, but the Steelers, we breed receivers. I'm not worried about that. They'll sign another receiver. They'll figure that situation out. They'll draft one. They'll replace it. We did it all the time. Claypool, Martavis Bryant, whoever, we always replace receivers. The Steelers will be all right at receiver.
So that's the biggest thing that I keep seeing. A lot of people are making a big deal about who didn't sign who and who didn't sign anywhere. Realistically, this isn't to make or break your team. This is to see either if you had a team that had a lot of turnover and you needed a lot of picks, this allows you to kind of go in the draft and be focused in the draft to make some moves in the draft. So for the Steelers, there's a lot of receivers there, right? There's a lot of number one receivers that can come out. You got
very deep draft.
You got the guy from what's his face? Keon Coleman. You know, he's going to drop.
Yeah,
he's not going to go first round. So I mean, he might go late first round where you guys could snag him. I think Keon Coleman is going to be the best receiver in this draft. I've said that over the last few weeks and a few months. He's just got the physicality body that
you think over Harrison though?
Yes, 100%.
Huh, interesting.
I think he's going to make a bigger splash than Harrison. I think Harrison has so much expectations that he may not fulfill that is going to basically put him down. Now, I could be completely wrong. Harrison come out and have 2,000-yard season, right? So, I mean, and if he does, right? But I just don't see it. Plus, I think Keon Coleman's going to go to a team where they're going to utilize him immediately, where Harrison's probably going to go to a team that's, let's just face it, not a very good team. So he's not going to be as utilized effectively, I guess, that you would normally see. But when I'm looking at free agencies right now, I got to say the team with the highest cap space is making some moves right now. The Washington Commanders, Austin Eckler, Zach Ertz, even though that's kind of a washed up pick. Frankie Louvu, I think his name is. They got some offensive linemen. They got 2 defensive ends. They got a guard. Like, they're going after and they're spending money. And Bobby Wagner, just signed Bobby Wagner. That's a huge move. I mean, Bobby Wagner, he's still kind of effective. I think he'll play good in that defense, and they're not afraid to spend money right now. They're going after guys and really utilizing that cap space. So
are you really I think they're making Eckler in that way as like an every down back? Because I just have never seen him as an every down back.
The problem with Eckler, the thing with Eckler is I like him in their formation. I don't know how they're going to use him. Right? I don't know if they're going to draft a back and then have him be the one and with kind of like Jones and Dillon, how they worked it there. Because Eckler's always had that second back so I think if they get that second back in there, they'll be in a good spot. I just think they're making the biggest splash in the sense of they're not afraid to spend money. How good will it work? I don't know. They traded away 2 DNs, brought in 2 DNs, right? You know, they lost 2 offensive linemen, they're bringing in 2 offensive linemen. So they're making the moves they need to help get themselves in a contending division like the NFC East. And then one other team, obviously my Philadelphia Eagles making huge moves that I didn't see coming at all, especially with the cap space. Saquon, Bryce Huff, Zach Braun. Matt Hennessy was my favorite pick out of next to Saquon. Being an offensive lineman, we were missing a guard when Cam Jurgens moves over to center. So they need a guard. And Hennessy, I love that guy. He played with such tenacity at the guard position in Atlanta. I think we're going to utilize him really well.
I do like the Brian Burns pickup. I do. Drew Lock, all right, capable backup. I still think maybe Tommy DeVito. Supposedly there's rumor that Tommy DeVito might start the season if they don't want Jones. I don't know. I don't know what the hell's going on in New York.
Gotcha. All right.
Yeah, pretty much.
No, Jones is starting the season.
So I think so too, but I don't know. There's all kinds of talk.
You're not going to pay a guy $40 million to sit on the bench. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, it's more of a help.
Not to start the season.
Or Denver paid a motherfucker $50 million to leave.
But Russ at least started the season. That's what I'm saying. He
stay on 50 this year, not to come back.
Yeah, but I'm saying to start the season, they're going to start Jones.
Yeah.
As long as he's healthy.
Well, then there's the big question: is he healthy? Oh man, this hurts. This hurts me to say. Yeah, it's the biggest splash. They took my running back. The biggest splash is
we'll take good care of him.
I know you'll use him. Yeah, the biggest splash is the Eagles signing Saquon Barkley because God knows that's what they needed was an explosive running back to go with their explosive receiving core and great quarterback and good offensive line. And it's going to be a long year for me as a Giants fan. But yeah, I just that's the perfect fit on and off the field, to be honest. And that's why as soon as the Giants didn't tag him, I was like, oh, he's going to Philly, isn't he? And so he did. And good luck to you, Saquon. I hope, I wish you nothing but good health.
He's
and
not dead.
Great.
Like Tiki.
Fuck
because fuck Tiki, because Tiki does nothing but talk shit, and he's just upset that the fact that his first year out of the league, he didn't like the Giants won the Super Bowl with Eli Manning, who he said they'd never win with. They won twice. So Tiki, go home. Saquon, I wish him nothing but the best. The only time I hope he doesn't do well is when he's playing the Giants. I appreciate.
We won't need to. He'll be resting for the playoffs at that point. No worries.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so no seriousness. Question for you. The Eagles, I know they went out and they signed Gardner Johnson back.
Yeah.
But I guess one of the things I still wonder with them, why I still do worry, is I still worry about the back end of that defense. Like I know Saquon in the splash, but I still do think there's something left back there, and I kind of do wonder with that.
But that's like I like the pieces that they added because now we can go in the draft and figure out who we want to grab in the draft.
So,
not saying, and then our rookie
really quick because there's a question I'm getting to. What I was going to say is, could you have took the Saquon money, still got another running back because there was 15 available, and took that to go slot it better in the DB category? Because that is, to me, that's what I would have done because there was still. When you were looking at people like Simmons got released out there from Denver, and you had some of these other available people you could have maybe still got guarded, you could have revamped basically the whole back end of defense because you're talking about going to the draft. So you're saying, let's go plug in 3 rookies back there. There was 15 available running backs. Like, could you have just plugged in Josh Jacobs or somebody still upgraded for less money? Because that's what.
So here's my thing with the Eagles, and I thought the same thing. I said, let's go get a corner. You've been hearing me bitch about it for like the last 6 months. I've been saying corners and linebackers, right? We only got one linebacker, but we got CJ Gardner-Johnson back who actually worked great in our system and with the players. What I think is Slay is going to drop back. We have Kelee Ringo. You got to remember also, the Eagles had 3 rookies in the corners position. Now they have a year under their belt. They're now professionals, right? They didn't do too bad. But I mean, Slay got burned.
They didn't do too bad.
Slay was the one that got burned the most, and I think that's the biggest thing, right? Slay was the one that needed to get put back into the safety spot. That's why I kept saying, in a lot of these corners, they don't want to because they want to, continue to be like, I'm the fastest.
You're an optimistic fan, but they aren't doing too bad because our group chat said every week, what the fuck is wrong with our secondary? We got 3 witnesses right here that had every week you complain about the entire back 7 of your team last year. That was you.
Yeah, I mean,
so I'm just saying.
But I also said that we were playing with 3 rookies at corner position, and we were also playing with three of our starters who were out. So when I finally cooled down and looked at our rookies that came out of Georgia and Alabama, I actually, I'm looking forward to seeing how their second year goes because they are fast. Kelee Ringo is one of the fastest guys in the draft. He's quick. He's a physical corner. Obviously, the end of the season, the entire team looked like shit. So I'm not going to just put it on our secondary. The entire team looked like shit. So
I will say this. With the Eagles, they at least Cox and Kelce are obviously losses that it's voids that it's difficult to fill as far as the fact that they're both very important parts of the locker room and team. Looking at the roster, I do think it still benefits them to have guys like Lane Johnson and Brandon Graham.
BG coming back was huge, I think,
right,
for that. And same with Lane. And, this is the year that Jalen's going to kind of step up and be the on-field leader. Like, that's where he's got to lead on the field. He didn't lead very well on the field last year, and I think that's where he's got to step up and do that. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I'm not too concerned. Not expecting – I never have expectations until, maybe we get to the Super Bowl, and then I'll have expectations. So – Fly, Eagles, fly. Saquon Barkley, welcome to the city of brotherly love. No, I'm hearing a lot of reports of saying Saquon doesn't really make an X factor to the Eagles based on his previous year's performance. Well, let me tell you something, and no offense to Mikey Mike's New York Giants, but he hasn't had a team in front of him to really help. Right? You go to a team that has a winning culture right now and has a winning mentality. All things point for positive. Yes, has he had injuries? I'm tired of hearing about the injuries. Every NFL player has injuries. Every single one. Whether you know about it or you don't, they have injuries. They play 18 games now and going to go to 20 soon, so you're going to see even more injuries. So I'm tired of people saying, oh, he's injury prone. He's been on the field. Unfortunately, the Giants just didn't utilize him the right way. The Eagles are going to utilize him the right way. We need another explosive piece on the offensive side of the ball. As you can see last year, we lost all of ours pretty much. So Saquon Barkley, welcome to the Philadelphia Eagles, and let's prove all these haters wrong that you're washed up. As we keep speaking about NFL free agencies, I guess we're gonna keep it on the gridiron and talk about the most overrated and underrated position in football. College or NFL. So, Grandpa Jay, I'll throw it down to you. What do you think?
You can go a couple ways with underrated. I think offensive linemen don't get enough credit for how smart they have to be. They really have to be able to see the whole field and sort of see things before they happen. But I'm going with probably a solid DB or cornerback because those guys have the best athletes coming at them, with a running start. And the way the NFL has gone so pass happy now, they have to elevate their understanding of the game tremendously because the game has made a huge shift, since Patrick Michael Jordan Mahomes has kind of taken over the league. And, we've seen a huge change in how people game plan. And that goes across the board, even teams traditionally who used to be run teams. So I definitely feel that DB position might be completely underrated because people don't understand how unbelievably quick and fast and, the understanding of your body, just getting your body to be optimal, to be able to play your position well enough to defend some of the best athletes in the world. It's incredibly tough. Overrated at this point, and like I said, more to shift into the idea that it's become a pass-happy league is running back. I mean, run it and see. Look at what's happening for agency. It's so easy to just say, okay, well, we'll let you walk and we'll replace you. It seems like it's a very underrated, overrated position at this point because we talk so much about having a balanced run attack and, every team needs a great running back. Well, think about, the last 5 Super Bowl champions, if you include Kansas City as 3 of those, none of them had elite running backs. You know what I mean? Like we're talking about very average running backs and people who obviously running backs have stepped up at the right time. But at this point, I got to say running back.
Yeah, I was looking at it through the cornerback sense for the underrated. I got to say the most underrated position, and I know it's probably one of the most paid positions, but I feel like we don't give enough credit to the defensive ends. We do and we don't in a sense, right? So we give them credit for like the TJ Watts, Myles Garrett, those type of guys. But I think a lot of the times when teams are starting to have a bad defensive year, we don't understand. Like last year with the Phillies, and I don't mean to just hone on my team, but it happens with most teams, where Josh Sweat and Hassan Reddick didn't have as much sack production because they had to drop back and play in an outside linebacker position, right? So I think we don't give enough credit to the athleticism that these defensive ends have to play. Because when I watch Pittsburgh, TJ Watt's dropping back in the linebacker position almost about half of what he's rushing the quarterback, and he's still producing the amount of sacks that he's doing. So I think that's a really underrated position. The most overrated position in the NFL is the quarterback position. We have some of the most mediocre quarterbacks starting in the league. I mean, when we have, I'm not going to pick on Baker right now because I think he did what he had to do. But there's probably 10 great quarterbacks in the league, and then the rest are kind of like, you're like one snap away from being a backup, right? So I think that's the most overrated, and we're paying these guys way too much money, and that's going to subsidize because eventually you're just not going to have any room on your roster to pay anybody. And that's why these running backs are not getting the contracts they deserve. So quarterbacks, yes, they're for the game that it's at right now, it's a pass-happy league, right? So you're going to pay the guy that's getting the ball the most and everything like that. But I think they're the most overrated because we have these guys coming out of college that are not NFL ready. Mm-hmm. Like in this draft, I don't see anyone that is NFL ready right now, even Caleb Williams. I don't think he's NFL ready. I think he needs to go sit behind someone. But when you look at it, we've adopted the thing where you gotta put him in the NFL, and he has to, because who's he going to sit behind? Justin Fields, who is still learning the game himself. He's not going to sit behind a vet. So I think the quarterback position is the most overrated position at this point.
The reason the pay is so astronomical is because you got to look at it from the law of averages, right? Because the supply and demand chain flip-flops where you have such low supply of great quarterback and high demand. That's why they're going to pay astronomical dollars for who they settle on as being the franchise, the person that's going to help move our franchise into what every franchise wants, is an opportunity to win.
But you look at Kirk Cousins, I mean, is he a 4-year, $100 million quarterback?
No, but it's Baker.
He is.
It's Baker.
I mean, apparently 3 times he is. But he's the best option for Atlanta because he's actually proven himself during the regular season. Not the playoffs, don't get me wrong. The playoffs are a completely different thing. He does not perform in the playoffs. But in the regular season, he has had successful teams, and he's gotten to the playoffs in the second best. So, TreyDay, what do you think?
I'm actually going to go same boat that Jay went. It's nothing like a lockdown corner. Lockdown corner just changes everything. It shuts down half the field. Your whole game planning gets to change at that point. Even your pass rush, you don't need a good pass rusher, but if you have a guy who can lock down outside, your pass rush doesn't have to be as great. You don't have to send many blitzes. So now you can double the number 2 receiver. You can take other parts of the game, and your safety, he can come play in the box now. He doesn't have to stay back because he's scared you're going to get smoked. So when you look at, I just remember having, Ty Law when Belichick was using him, or when Revis was going, or Deion Sanders back in the day, Champ Bailey, some of these guys, you didn't have to worry about the other 3 DBs. You didn't have to worry about having the same pass rush. And in today's game, it's so skewed to offense that having a guy who just knows how to navigate back there and not get constantly flagged is a big deal. Also, when you do become that superstar corner, they let you get away with a little more shit than the guy who's used to being burnt. There's no different. Like, when you watch the NBA and certain people are a lot more grace. And when you're back there like Jalen Ramsey, he can mug people ways that other people can't because he's a superstar corner right now. Snead last year, later in the year, was mugging people because they were starting to put him into that star status and starting to get away with things. So having that reputation as a star corner, that can just change everything. I would say for the overrated position, right now I would actually say tight end because there aren't too many. It's crazy. We went from having all these versatile tight ends to now everybody's just subbing the guy in. Okay, this is my receiving tight end. This is my blocking tight end. Yeah, we have our Kelseys, we have our Andrews, but it's not that many of them. A lot of these tight ends are being subbed in and out because you have Kyle Pitts, who's he's a receiver at the end of the day. Now we have these guys who are either based on your Jimmy Graham or you're straight up the blocking guy. We don't have that many guys who can do both. So I just think with the exception of maybe Kelsey, Andrews, a couple others like Kittle, let's got Laporta, there aren't more than really 6 to 7 guys who can play all day, every day at tight end.
Even Laporta, they're starting to transfer him to being like a dominant receiving tight end.
And him too.
Where they don't even bring him in to block. But Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, so I'm going to also take the underrated into the secondary, but a different position. I would say free safety because, to me, free safety is the freest it's been in league history. As far as a lot of times these guys in a lot of sets,
the name free safety,
right? Right. They're really living up to the name now because these guys are doing almost at least one thing that every other defensive position does. Sometimes they're sent on blitzes. They're playing in the box. They're playing in coverage, zone, man, all those types of things. So you really need to have, to me, a smart safety out there that can do a little bit of everything. You really have to have a versatile person these days in the league, especially as we've said, as all of you have said, in this pass-happy league, this offense-happy league. It takes a lot to be able to I got a thing go, trying to reconnect.
Says you're recording.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I can hear you.
It takes a lot for, these guys to be able to kind of fit in wherever a specific defensive system needs them to be. As far as overrated, I'm going to take it to your defensive tackles because these days there's really not a lot of what we would have used to define as defensive tackles. A lot of defensive tackles are what used to be defensive ends, and they play like defensive ends. So I think that's a position that in its normal nature is starting to become a little more obsolete. You get nose tackles, you get the big nose tackles, but there's not a lot of them left in the league. We don't have a lot of Vince Wilforks left in the league now. It's just an entire line of defensive ends.
I'm big guys like that. Like I
know, right?
Having those extremely large guys you would bring in. Because you imagine if Vince Wilfork, no offense to your Eagles,
Reggie, baby.
what would Vince Wilfork have done to the tush push?
We would have just pushed him back.
Motherfucker to push.
I would have felt bad for Kelsey because he would have been the one getting landed on every time he got. He'd be like, again. I mean, I don't know. I mean, the D tackle position. I mean, I'm tagging Aaron Donald. He ain't gonna like you, Mike. Aaron Donald coming at you.
Chris Jones.
Yeah, but Aaron Donald. Half the time, Aaron Donald gets listed as a defensive end now.
No, if you look at it, D tackle.
If I've seen him listed as defensive end on rosters.
So
I've never had.
Okay, so he's not. So
he's a big ass D tackle.
No. So he's still he's listed as a D tackle most times, but he does play a good amount outside in the 5-10. Same with Chris Jones. They'll line him up out there. They are listed officially on depth chart D tackles though, for the sake of like franchise tags and shit. But they do the good ones move around.
To back up Mikey's
They're
point.
more agile now, I would say. They're more agile on the line because you have to be.
Yeah. To back up Mikey's point a little bit, go back to that free safety though. Like when you instantly say, okay, name some of the greatest defenders in the last 25 years. You go to your Ray Lewis and you go to more dynamic players that are making plays on the quarterback, and you don't see the intangibles of what that free safety can really do to change the tone of the game. I think his name should be echoed a lot more as, if not the best defensive player in the last 25 years of football. That's Ed Reed. Yeah. Ed Reed made the game. I mean, he changed the game as far as I'm concerned, but he made the game so much easier. He made the game so much easier for everybody else on his team to shine. But he never got that credit as being, to me, hands down, probably one of the best, if not the best defender in the last 25 years of.
Well, what makes a great safety is because you have the freedom to pick what you want, is you have to be on point most of the time. So I think that I agree with you, Mike, on the underrated, because you have to be able to read an offense just as good as that offense can read your defense. So you're almost a quarterback in this scenario because you have to make sure you're making the play. And if one bad move, we've seen it all the time, and then we see Tyreek Hill running all alone by himself, and we're like, how is he by himself? And it's like the safety jumped on the wrong guy. He didn't read the offense. So I agree with you on that one.
Kayla Ard got left out to dry this past week. After Utah State lost their game in the Mountain West women's basketball tournament, and clearly they're not going to the tournament, the NCAA tournament, because they really had a bad season, another one under Coach Ard. They've only, in 4 years, they've never had a winning season and only broke double-digit wins one time. So clearly it is time for a change within the program, and I don't disagree with that. But what I do disagree with is putting Art in a position where it's impossible, because they had let her know she was no longer going to be the coach before the post-game press conference. So now she goes on to a microphone and has to answer questions about the future of a program that she's no longer coaching. So Utah State, you have to do better than that. You can't put this... It's not fair to put her in a position where all of a sudden all these reporters who obviously don't know that she's no longer the coach because the story hasn't leaked yet, you just told her moments before, they're asking her all these questions about what are you going to do in the future? How are you going to move forward from this? How can you break through and have a winning season? And she just has to say, I don't know. I'm no longer the coach of this team. I just coached my last game at Utah State. And it understandably became national news because we've really never seen a press conference like that before, at least not in recent memory. So hopefully this is a lesson to college basketball programs and franchises all over to, at least if you're going to let your coach be in the press conference, don't inform them that you're firing them before they do it to avoid these types of awkward situations.
One shining moment. The NCAA tournament is right around the corner, boys, and I'm looking forward to it. It's been great conference championship week so far. Looking forward to the weekend. But this sparks a little interest because the women's conference championship was probably one of the most viewed and entertaining it has been in a very long time. So this begs the question, will the men's or women's tournament draw a bigger TV audience this year or for March Madness? Mike, what do you think?
The I think with all the storylines going on and the historic numbers, it should be the women's. It really should. But I can't doubt the history of the men's tournament overcoming that, unfortunately. I think there's a little caveat to this. I think this will be the most viewed women's tournament we've ever seen. I still think the men's is going to have more viewership just because there are, unfortunately, a lot of fans that just don't watch the women's game, but that watch the men's game. And I think the women's game is on its way to changing that. And I think it's on the right track to changing that with not only the level of talent, but also the level of marketing that talent and how they're really leaning into as we've said in the past, leaning into the personalities and who these girls are. But unfortunately, I still do think that this is a year where we'll see the men's tournament have better viewership, but it's trending the other way, personally.
Yeah, the women's tournament's never going to surpass the men's. I'm sorry. I don't care what the storylines you put out there. I don't care if Angel Reese has to go up against Kim Ordoso again. I don't care if Caitlin Clark goes up against Paige Buchers. It's never going to outpull the men's because the men's has put a lot more money into, a lot more sponsorships, and it's like Mike said, it's the heritage of the men's tournament. I just don't see it. And it's nothing against the women because I actually enjoyed the games we watched last week because they were really fun. And it's going to draw me in, right, as a basketball fan to watch these games and hope for – I mean, there's 8 teams. I mean, we're going to be watching from the Elite Eight on, right? So until we can get to that round of 32, because I think what happens is the NCAA tournament for the men's is there's a lot more upsets in round 1 and 2 versus the women's. The women's, I think the teams that, maybe 1, maybe it's 5 beating 12, I think it is, or whatnot. But I just don't see the upsets and the storylines coming together probably in the Sweet 16, where then you're going to get the viewership. So that's when they may compete a little bit, but I think the men's will still outcompete the women's tournament. It's unfortunate, but I mean, it's just the way it'll be. TreyDay?
So kind of what John said, but actually I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think because I do think in the early rounds, the men are going to slaughter it in the ratings because the women don't have as many upsets. So nobody's going to care about LSU just housing some teams, South Carolina housing some team. But as we start to get down to that Elite Eight, that's where all the storylines are going to show up. And that's when I do think that we are going to start to say, oh, shit, the ratings are getting closer. Part of the reason I think so is because we talked about this before. The men have so many upsets, and I'm almost for the men a little bit worried of, let's say we hypothetically end up in a scenario where there is the Final Four and there's a 4 versus 8, and then there's a 13 versus a 4. Well, people may lose interest because what happens is half the reason you got these, fair weather fans to show up is because they're trying to watch their bracket. But if all of our brackets are done, then now I'm going for the storyline. The storyline is on the women's side because now I'm looking at, you got the superstar head coaches. I mean, Kim Mulkey is interesting. You got Gino still coaching. You got Dawn Staley. Coaches, that is what's always so. Whether we go back to Coach K or Boeheim or any of these guys, they have the superstar coaches. They have the superstar players. We got people fighting. We got family members jumping out the crowd. We got all types of shit that we're selling with the women. I know for me, I never thought I'd be looking more forward to the women's. Yeah, I never thought I'd be looking more forward to the women's tournament than the men's tournament. This is probably the first year where I'm like, oh, I actually have watched more women's college basketball than men's college basketball. And another thing, too, and I've never understood this with the men's tournament. Usually the finals, correct me if I'm wrong, is on like a Monday or Tuesday. The women's final is on a Sunday. So that I do think will help boost them too because you have a Sunday afternoon, everybody's just sitting at home chilling. I can see that actually helping boost them as well.
I think the 2 games that are going to be watched the most in the women's tournament is the first round South Carolina and LSU. Why? Because they're going to have suspensions from that game. It goes back to what we said. Do we think there should be suspensions? No, you ejected the players. You already kind of handled it right then and there. Right. But there's going to be suspensions for the first round game. So South Carolina and LSU could potentially be upset in the first round without their 2 stars, right? Angel Reese is one of the stars that's going to be on the floor, but their point guard is also a really good player. So it could happen, right? I don't think it will, but it could happen. People might look out for it just for that scenario because they're missing their biggest player on their team.
Right.
Jamie,
Yeah, all you guys touched on great points there that I could just kind of elaborate on. And the big number here is 20 million. And there's 20 million reasons why it's going to be a tale of two weekends. So ESPN alone is going to have over 20 million brackets filled out. And that's mostly the men's brackets. It's not the women's bracket. So it's a tale of two weekends where everybody's going to be highly invested in week one or weekend one for the men's tournament. And just like Trey and Mike and you have mentioned, is these storylines are going to start playing out where all of a sudden you're like, wait, there's an undefeated team that can possibly go down. There's this sensational freshman who ESPN just voted as National Runner-Up Player of the Year and Freshman of the Year, who may be playing against the all-time greatest women's college basketball player if you're going to put Caitlin Clark in that sort of air, based on her being the best scorer of all time in college basketball, period. So you're creating these amazing storylines of, are you going to take the undefeated team down? Is the freshman going to outduel the sensational junior who has done the most incredible things anybody can imagine them doing in their career? So the men don't have that going for them this year. Zach Edey's not going to draw people in. Regardless if Zach Edey has a 30-30 game, nobody's going to freak out with a 7-4 guy getting 30 points and 30 rebounds. They'd be like, well, it's about fucking time. You should have been doing this every week, every other week, right? So the men don't have that name that's going to lure people in. But the upsets alone, I think, had the average fans a little more interested, because all of a sudden the talk was how many brackets have already been busted by the second day of the tournament, right? So it's almost like people hate it, but it's like, are you one of those people that have the rare bracket that still has a chance to be a perfect bracket where it's like a 9 in quintuplillion chance, whatever the mathematical number is, that you could hit that perfect bracket? But I'm looking forward to both tournaments probably more than ever in my life. There's many a times I'd be like, I'll just check out the women on Friday or Sunday when they have their Final Four and the championship game. I think I'm going to be a lot more invested in what's going on throughout the tournament both ways. And one thing with the men's tournament that they kind of have going for them at this point is that there's a lot of questions all of a sudden with some of the blue blood teams because of injuries, or perhaps they're not playing good defensive ball, so they're susceptible to lose. So, and that goes across the board. Even though North Carolina and Kentucky are trending upward and Kansas and Duke are trending downward, you just never know once the ball's tipped off. And I feel people love knowing, that Goliath can be taken out early. They much rather Goliath go down early. They're sick of seeing Goliath in the Final Four. So I think we may have another year like that with the men's, where the average fan can be like, yay, let's go Cinderella, where we're just like, no, we need the stars. We need the big matchups. And the women are going to be the tournament that offers that to us.
Right.
Yeah, look at Mike. Like last year in the NCAA tournament, Mike said, fuck UNC. Let's go FAU. Give me an owl. I'm the Owls fans. And he doesn't even like at UNC anymore. He just likes the FAU Owls.
That's not true.
So, men's tournament does that.
I don't see anything for UNC.
I couldn't root because they're super expensive.
That shirt is an FAU shirt.
No,
I see it.
It's a Rangers shirt.
I read between the lines.
There are no lines. I couldn't root for UNC in the tournament last year. They didn't make it.
What was that, Mike?
Well, whose fault is that?
North Carolina did not make the NCAA tournament last year. However, this year they're going to be like a 2 seed.
Jeez.
They're going to be 1 seed.
Huh?
They'll be a 1 seed this year, most likely.
So are y'all looking most forward to if LSU and South Carolina somehow meet up again, or would you guys be more intrigued with a Juju Caitlin match?
I'm interested to see LSU take on Iowa at some point.
Yeah,
because I want to see Caitlin get a revenge against LSU, because this LSU team is not as good as it was last year.
Look, USC has more stars than people think. Juju and her crew going to take a team out. They're a 1 seed most likely, but
which USC are we referring to? The undefeated USC? Or the Trojans,
the Trojans. I call East Coast South Carolina.
South Carolina people are 32-0, and they would have something else to say to that.
Hey, South Carolina people, listen up. You guys are Gamecocks. Period. USC is West Coast acronym.
I remember I had this argument with my buddy in like 8th grade about USC, and we were talking about like Reggie Bush. He's like, yeah, he went to USC. I'm like, yeah, University of Southern California. He goes, no, University of South Carolina. I was like, no, bro, he went to California. He wore a Trojan. They're the Trojans.
Yeah.
I remember this argument went on for 3 months.
Jesus.
Oh, wow.
Did y'all not?
We had technology.
Google
we had technology.
Like, just look it up.
I did not need to look it up. I watched
it. You need to show his ass.
I literally told him, I'm like, go look it up. He's like, no. I know he played for USC. I remember. I'm like, yes, he did, but not Carolina. I remember, dude. It was like I'm saying this dude's not like looking it up. I watched
Listen to me.
Reggie win the Heisman. I watched him lose in the national title game.
Who was the South Carolina running back that was freaking ridiculous?
Lattimore.
Marcus Lattimore.
Remember I shot him out as a coach a month ago or two.
Yeah.
Kudos to the Orlando Magic for believing in what they have in head coach Jamal Mosley. Coach Mosley was rewarded with a 4-year contract extension this week that will keep him on the sidelines coaching the Magic through the 27-28 season. Now, Mosley has already won more games this year than he did in his first 2 seasons with the Magic. And I love this move for this young core that found the gem and all-star hybrid forward, Paolo Banchero, and lead-in candidate to me for most improved player in the NBA, Franz Wagner, who has both flourished under the leadership of Coach Mosley. So with so many irrational, impatient changes like we know in today's revolving door approach when it comes to head coaches, as too many coaches are being fired right now and prematurely without even allowing them time to implement their culture and steadily improve a team, I love what this Magic management team has done. So big up to Anthony Parker, the GM of the Magic, and his team for believing in the right person that was committed to turning things around for this franchise when shit was already hitting the fan. So way to go, Mr. Parker. You understood that healthy change in any organization takes time, and Coach Mosley will do an incredible job with this young core, and watch out for this Orlando Magic team next year. I think they're 1 year away from making a move to play for the Eastern Conference Championship.
The NBA is starting to heat up. We got playoffs right around the corner. I know it's a few months away, but we still got teams heating up. So it brings in a good question. A lot of moves happened last offseason. Which moves last offseason kind of translated and are starting to kind of be like, okay, yeah, that was a great move? Mike, what do you think?
So I think the most underrated move for the NBA last offseason was definitely the Celtics getting Drew Holiday. I think he's been a big part of what their success. I mean, they already had a good team, but I was a little apprehensive about getting rid of Marcus Smart in the sense of I was a big Marcus Smart fan as far as what he brought as like both ends of the game. But Drew Holiday has brought that and more. I think he's proven that Milwaukee definitely is going to miss him despite having Dame. I think Dame was a big pickup, but Drew Holiday is my most underrated acquisition. I think he may be the piece that gets Boston over the top finally.
Did you not think Drew Holiday was better than Marcus Smart?
No, I did. I just like Marcus Smart as a player.
Marcus Smart.
I was just thinking because like you said, he didn't like the. You thought he was like not as. It didn't. It sounded like you said it wasn't as good.
No.
I was like Drew is exactly who Marcus Smart is, but 2 times better.
Yeah, but you liked him with that team because they grew together.
Yeah, I liked him with Milwaukee too, but I don't know. I guess mine would have to be looking at the hindsight is my Miami Heat. You know, they didn't make many moves. They re-signed some guys, let some guys go. Max Strus, unfortunately, I would have loved to kept him. But I think it's coming to fruition now that you don't underestimate Mr. Pat Riley, because Pat Riley has never kind of let the Heat down in the sense in making a playoff run, and they're starting to heat up. They're one of the hottest teams in NBA right now, and they're doing fine. I mean, will they make a deep playoff run? That is the big question mark for me. Can they sustain it? I think they have the depth for it. Do they have the talent for it? That's the biggest question. So I would have to say the Miami Heat not making many moves in the last offseason really enhanced it. TreyDay?
All right, so I took a different approach to this. I took the move that somebody made that they shouldn't have made, which was when the Dallas Mavericks decided to go out and give Grant Williams a contract for 4 years of $53 million. Terrible contract. Why? Because he's not even on the team anymore. They had to quickly get rid of him. Some people said he came out of shape. They were talking about players are annoyed with him. And to me, you now wasted a year of Luke and Kyrie. Kyrie, actually, we've had no issues. Kyrie's been a perfect citizen. Luke and him have actually worked out, but you wasted that time. Now, you can look at it and say, well, look, they took Grant Williams and they flipped him for P.J. Washington, but P.J. Washington was a free agent anyway, so they could have just went and got P.J. Washington the first time. To get P.J. Washington now, they had to go trade a first-round draft pick just to bring P.J. in, so now you just gave up another future asset. The other thing about that, too, is if maybe you didn't, let's say, take that route, what I would have maybe looked at if I was them was I would have tried to make a serious run at Kuzma, who I think would have been a bigger upgrade over either of the two. Kuzma stayed out in Washington, but you could have played some cap gymnastics, sent the Hardaway contract over, and maybe got Kuzma to come out, which I think would have filled a lot more void. I think the Mavericks would be a lot more ahead right now if they had never set themselves back with that Grant Williams deal, which proved to be clearly one of the worst deals of free agency, based on the fact that they didn't even keep the guy.
Grandpa Jay, what do you think?
I'm more looked on this from a different level, and not so much at teams that are competing right now, but a team that really did themselves a lot of injustice. And I thought that was the Houston Rockets having money and saying, let's just bring Dylan Brooks in when they had so many young kids that you're trying to develop at his position. He doesn't fit the culture. He doesn't fit the system. He's taken away from their development. You just wasted $90 million on someone who's proven to be an absolute punk-ass bitch. And all I think he's doing is taking away from opportunities for those youngsters to get better this season. I think they have the right coach on their roster, on the staff now, who's going to turn things around for them. I just think that bringing him in is really undermining the development, especially of I forget the twin. Who's the twin that they got?
Thompson.
Yeah,
Thompson. Especially the young Thompson twin, because he's taken away from a lot of potential minutes this kid could be developing right now this year to have a much bigger impact next year for this team. And I just thought to myself, like, why? Like, why that position and why him? I get you. I get it. You want toughness. You want these young kids to have a guy around them who's gritty and is going to tell them, like, look, man, don't take any shit from nobody. But I just thought that was the absolute worst move that any team could have made that killed the development of this team to get them further ahead for next season.
Look, man, you could say he's tough and all, but he's not tough because he's not producing. Right? You can be tough, like, right? You could be Dennis Rodman, you could be Horace Grant, tough, but they're producing, right? They talk shit, but they produce at the same time.
Right.
So that's a leader right there. Hey, he's talking shit and backing that shit up. Dylan Brooks, isn't he been ejected? Isn't he set a record ejected every single game this season or something like that?
Not that bad.
I'm fucking with you. Yeah. he's him and Draymond are going back and forth. They got a bet.
Yes.
But like, I don't understand why Dylan Brooks, and that's a whole nother kind of story. But what happened to him? Because he was tough in Oregon, but he was also always a producing player at Oregon. Then he came in the league and did the same thing, and that's why Memphis got rid of him. Is because they had such a young squad that they were like, we don't need this toxic energy in our locker room. We already got Ja Morant that is our future that we need to pay attention. We can't pay attention to you either. So I don't know. I agree with you on that, Jay. I never understood that. I said he should never even been in the league. I mean, I don't think because he doesn't produce. That's the problem, right? Like I don't even know what his stats are, but it can't be that good. Not $90 million worth.
No, not at all. He does not contribute at nearly a $90 million.
Let me go out there. I'll go get a check.
I'll fact check for you.
All right. See you guys.
90 mil.
It wouldn't be a Cinco Squad episode 102 without our signature in Stump the Squad.
Bang, 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 bang.
Boy. Take it away, Dre.
All right, so you guys know what it is. It's a new season here on Stump the Squad. We're in our second season of crowning an absolute winner. And what I mean by that is we're going for a 25 show straight. And at the end of the 125 show, we will crown not a new winner, but yours truly once again. Haven't gone off to a good start, but today's a new day. So if you guys want to play along, give yourselves +2 if you get it right, -2 if you get it wrong. Don't use your phone to look up the answers. We don't, because we know everything. We just want you guys to feel good about yourselves because we get something wrong every now and again. This week, I'm going to let TreyDay lead us away because I feel like sometimes he gets on a hot streak if he answers first. So I'm going to try and cool him off early on here.
All right, so we talked about NFL free agency today and, just a lot that was going on. So salaries have changed a lot over the years. In 1994, Scott Mitchell had the biggest deal. So 1994 free agency, Scott Mitchell had the biggest deal of the year. What was the total value of his contract? $11 million, $19 million, $22 million, or $26 million?
All 19. In without any guaranteed bullshit.
This is just the total value. They didn't have as many of the top.
What was the year? 19 when?
This is 1994.
11 million. What was it?
Yeah, the total value of his contract was it 11 million, 19 million, 22 million, or 26 million.
I want to say 22.
Okay, John's going 22.
I'll go 19.
Mike's going 19.
Yeah, 19 sounds right, but I'm trying to figure out how do you structure it. 5-year 19 doesn't sound like enough. Shit, I'll go with 22.
Okay, so we got 22 for John, 22 for Jamie, 19 for Mike.
Yep.
Okay, so today I have successfully stumped all of y'all.
Wow,
Stumped
it's
11.
It was 11.
Oh, wow.
I thought it was 11. I said it too in the fucking beginning too.
His
God damn it.
contract was 3 years, $11 million, and that
Wow.
was the highest contract in free agency in
It's a
1984.
3-year deal. I thought it would
It
be more like
sounded like
7 a
when
year.
you said it, I was like, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
Because like back then they didn't get shit.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yep, it shows you the difference. These contracts versus back then.
fucking crazy, right? Joe Montana would have been getting stupid money right now.
I mean, that was 30 years ago. That was free agency 30 years ago. They were getting.
All right, who's next?
Let's see. Mike won last week. Let's keep him cold.
Mike?
Okay. Well, it just so happens I too have an NFL free agency question. Whose free agency sweepstakes is credited with bringing about what we know as modern NFL free agency? Is it A, Deion Sanders, B, Curtis Martin, C, Reggie White, or D, Jerry Rice?
See you, Reggie.
Oh,
Reggie
God,
White.
that's fucking tough, but I think it's Reggie White.
Reggie White.
But those are fucking good ones, Mike.
Yeah,
I
Curtis
think it's
Samuel
Reggie
might
White.
be the creeper sleeper in there where he may have stumped us all.
So you're all going Reggie White?
Yeah,
Yes.
he looks smug. Is it
God
Curtis
damn it.
Samuel?
No,
right?
it's Reggie White.
It's
He
Reggie
went
White.
from the Eagles to the Pack, or no, he went from the Packers to the Eagles.
No, Eagles
Pack-
to Packers.
Eagles
to
to Packers.
Good
Yeah,
Eagles
couldn't
and
remember.
Packers.
Minister of
Okay.
Defense.
I used to read a lot about Reggie White as a kid, so I actually knew that.
I just thought because I think he was before Jerry Rice and Dion, right? Or was he right in the middle?
Deion was.
Which
Jerry
Samuel,
played.
I think-
Jerry stayed in San Fran. He moved to Green Bay while Jerry was still in San Fran.
Yeah. Jerry was
okay.
like
Deion
01
moved. Yeah,
when he
Deion
went to
moved to
right.
the Niners.
Dallas. Yeah,
Dallas
Niners.
and the
Sorry, after
Niners.
the whole. Yeah, and they
Yeah.
won a Super Bowl in the mid-90s.
Okay. John.
Alrighty, so screw your free agency. I'm going to go to the hardwood. Hasha Pointer set the NCAA tournament record with how many assists in a single game? Was it 14, 17, 18, 22?
17 for the win.
Mike and Jay say
18.
TreyDay with 18. Okay, give me 1 second. I just got to do the little scory scores. All right, so Mike and Jamie say 17, and TreyDay says 18, and TreyDay is right. It is 18.
Jesus.
So
Well, I'm out.
Mike is out.
Yep.
Trey with 4, me with 0, and Jamie with -2. So it's between TreyDay and myself and Grandpa Jay. You are up.
All right, gentlemen. So I'll stay on the hardwood. And I had to reintroduce my guy, Bill Walton, one more time in the show. So during UCLA's magical run from 64 to 75, where they captured 10 out of 12 titles, which one of these teams did not fall victim to Coach Wooden's decade plus of dominance in the championship game? A, Purdue, B, Marquette, C, Dayton, or D, Florida State? Tell me the team which did not fall victim to UCLA in
What was
one
the
of
four
those
again?
10 championship games.
Florida State.
Yeah.
That
I'm
was
feeling
my
Florida
pick,
State.
actually. Florida State.
We have a unanimous Florida State.
Damn, that sucks, Jay.
Well, gentlemen, I have successfully stumped the squad this week. The answer is Marquette, who went on to
Oh, really?
lose to North
I thought
Carolina
Marquette had a good
State.
70.
I was
yeah.
watching the Bill
Yeah.
Walton documentary, and they mentioned this part. So I was trying to remember that part, and I think it was Bill Walton's year, right?
Yeah,
Did they upset him?
well, Marquette lost a different team the year after, but they beat Purdue, they beat Duke, they beat North Carolina, they beat Kentucky,
Beat
they
everyone.
beat every perennial team. And then there was some randoms. They beat Florida State, they beat Purdue, so they had some randoms in there. They beat
I think
Florida State had a
Jacksonville.
good
How about
team,
that?
yeah.
Jacksonville was a runner-up to UCLA one year.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's how you look at it. Well, episode 102 winner goes to Mr. TreyDay once again. Congratulations, TreyDay, on your second victory. So the scoreboard reads TreyDay with 2, Mike with 1, and John and Jamie with goose eggs. So TreyDay is off to a hot start with 2. We can't let him get too far ahead. So back in the suitcase.
A lot of reading in the suitcase. A lot of trivia.
I know, I see that.
You found my trivia books.
Yeah.
No, he found the Marquette dictionary in there, so that's what it was in there. Reading that up. So,
yep.
Great episode, fellas.
Yes.
Really looking forward to the next few weeks. I mean, it feels like when NFL ended, it was like, oh, sports are done. But it's just heating back up. We got a couple 2-week break, and now it's NCAA tournament time. We got NBA time. We got NHL playoffs coming up. There's a lot tuning up. And then not to mention, we have the NFL draft in just under a month. And I believe Mr. TreyDay is going to be celebrating his 20th birthday on that day. So
isn't that right?
He'll be 20.
Nice.
I'm going backwards.
That's right.
We're going backwards.
Reverse Benjamin Button.
Yeah, I'd say the curious case of TreyDay.
Yes.
So I'm really looking forward to the rest of the year. I think it's going to be a great end of the sports year, as we said it last year. And then we got to go right into Paris Olympics, and then boom, right back into NFL. So really looking forward to it. Make sure you guys are tuning into all of our socials at Cinco Squad Pod 05. We'll be on Twitter and Instagram mostly, going live and tweeting. So make sure you're tuning in. We're definitely going to be tuning into all these great games.
Yes.
Fellas, any final thoughts heading into the weekend?
Yeah, give me all the rivals this week in the SC tournament game. I want Florida in the quarterfinals. Take care of that freaking dumbass. Give me Auburn in the semis, and give me Tennessee again in the finals. Let's go Kentucky. SEC tournament time. Let's play for that 2 seed.
Yeah, and my season's over for college basketball. Bonaventure is still in it. They play tomorrow, or play today. And Syracuse is toast. I'm not going to talk about that too much.
Go Heels.
Go Big East.
Go Heels.
And Mike's FAU Owls will be taking on...
Mike's FAU.
Good luck to Mike.
I saw any of the WCC tournament, but to me, all 4 teams in there could be formidable teams in the tournament. They won't get in.
What was it, San Fran, Portland?
San Francisco looks grimy as hell. Santa Clara look like they can compete, but not as good as St. Mary's or Gonzaga. Both those teams are going to give somebody headaches. I wish San Fran was in the tournament. They got some gritty ass big men on that team.
Mm-hmm.
And let's go to the USF Bulls. They play Friday at 1 or noon, one of the 2 times. But they play the first game. So good luck to USF Bulls, number 1 seed in the American Athletic Conference.
They better get in.
They better get in because they proved it. So, all right, everyone, we'll see you here next week for Cinco Squad episode 103, where we will have potentially Idris coming back on the show to talk some NCAA tournament and his experience in the NCAA tournament. So we'll see you here next week.